Okay.
So, like, how do I, like, hold this thing? Am I just going to hold it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think it'll be all right. Like, you don't need to buy things to, like, do stuff.
Nah.
So, this is the start of Queer Undead. It's the first episode.
Woohoo.
We're going to talk about things that friends have recorded for us or sent messages for us.
I think we should talk about how we came across, or came to the idea of the Queer Undead. That was why I wanted to talk about the Virosexuals, though, because it's intertwined with that, and it occurs in the Virosexuals book as well, without really giving away what happens in the plot or anything. But I guess, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, the Virosexuals is Orion Facey's first novel, which we're publishing under the 5 Evidently imprint, which is a very small independent label.
Uh-huh.
I did a vlog about it on the Damp Ocean YouTube, if anyone wants to see it. For me, it covers a lot of themes in a creative way that reflect on how, or like a common attitude that people have to life and society and tool being, and like a lot of behaviors that occur for people in the present or whatever. I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about how you started writing that, or how you came?
Sure, yeah. Well, it basically started, the very first, like, seed was this idea of a virus that kills you when you achieve an orgasm. And the whole story came from about exploring that idea and how that, if that virus existed, how would it change the way that we interact with each other? And what sort of precautions would we have to take? And it kind of grew into something a lot bigger than that, I suppose. It became a way for me to, like, mediate my transness and my transition back in the UK through a book where I could, like, play out loads of different fantasies or
Identities
or trajectories for myself without having to do them in real life. But it still is real life.
Without really committing to the beliefs represented in the book.
Right. So in a way, it's actually like a very flexible way to, like, engage with your identity. It's like realer than real.
Well, for me, it also, like, I mean, it has some pretty strong commentary about how people engage with their identity and sexuality, especially in queer culture. And, like, through that, also commenting on the world, like, both from a perspective, like a queer perspective, but then also, like, in a subverted way, like looking at queerness from a less queer perspective, like like the virosexuality is kind of also considered to be too queer for the queers, so it's like there's like a double view going on there where, like, the queers and the normies are too normy, and like the virosexuals are too queer, so it's like,
right, yeah. Well, the story also happens at a point where queerness is failing to, like, encompass all of the new bodies that exist in the future.
Well, which it is now anyway.
Right.
And yeah. I feel like it's modes of trying to encompass identities or bodies or attitudes is too limited by the kind of existing mode of understanding or whatever, like the mode of understanding in, like, queer communities is often not so different from the mode of understanding in, like, het communities or whatever, society at large or whatever.
Right.
It just has different aesthetic or whatever. Like, the actual mode is, like, still pretty bureaucratic or, you know, like
Right.
trying to like write down or account for all the types of identities that are recognized and like fit them all into the name, like LGBTQI, SPH, whatever. Like,
Right.
I like, which I appreciate the gesture or whatever, but like, it's like you're never gonna fit every
Right.
every
Well, it kind of just feels like it sort of topples underneath its own weight.
Yeah, just like society does, really. I mean, like the desire that produces bureaucracy and like cataloging and history or whatever,
Right.
etc. You know, is one of like lifting the weight off of identity, but like it ends up just piling that weight back up in terms of like the work that it takes to maintain bureaucracy. You know, like the more we try and like manage the bureaucracy, and then like the more we build up more bureaucracy trying to manage that bureaucracy, like the more, you know, the less we actually have space to do the identity work and the like, I don't know, engagement with the world that actually matters.
Right. Yeah. And that is what Queer Undead represents to me. Like, what does the queerness look like that doesn't have the baggage of bureaucracy tying itself down?
Yeah. Well, it's like, it seems to kind of have a double meaning as well, because it's like, is the Queer Undead like our goal in terms of like surpassing the queer bureaucracy? Or is it like the zombies that like enter queerness because they don't know how to deal with their identity? And then, I mean, they end up still not knowing how to deal with their identity a lot of the time, but they just have different kind of tools to represent it or whatever. But you know, like the kind of toxic attitudes and like abuse and domination that come out of the queer community are like, I don't know, no different from those that like intersectional STWs claim to hate, really.
Well, it just seems like it's like strategizing or something. Like, it's like observing a system of power and then just trying to subvert that power. But it still doesn't really transcend that game.
No. Yeah, it basically, I mean, yeah, it's just like trying to be at the top of that ladder rather than, I don't know, actually turning it around.
Right. Well, actually, for me, the name Queer Undead, the double meaning of it is like, if you enter queerness or enter that realm, let's say, you forfeit life and become undead. What if you just accept the fact that you're undead and you don't try to achieve life? What happens as a result of that?
Yeah, well, I think that kind of like applies to like the world anyway, you know. I mean, it's like a pretty like, I mean, it could work as a rule, you know, but it's like, I mean, exploring it as like a queer concept is good, but I mean, like the things being explored in terms of like identity or difference in like queer narrative, we could say, like apply to the whole world anyway, but it's just like everyone else is managing to repress it. I mean, well, you know, maybe. Everyone else is managing to repress it, however else that kind of resurfaces in terms of their behavior and like whatever pain, health, attitude, etc. So it's like, I mean, for people as well as queers, it's like, you know, the more you accept your undeadness, like the more you like achieve your aliveness or whatever. I mean, like in the book as well, it's like it's another level further on where like the bisexuality also kind of represents like queerness now, right? But it's like a much further on development
Yep.
or evolution of queerness.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, you could say it's like closer to achieving the undeadness without giving anything away, but like
Bisexuality is basically a movement away from healthiness, or well, healthiness as in terms of like a Darwinian evolutionary sense of like a functioning body that can navigate the world.
Well, yeah, the world of bureaucracy and like conformity, blah blah blah.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like holding your body hostage against the world by making it so that it can't actually be used for like labor, or it can't be used to participate in consumerism. It's just like
a purely spiritual vehicle.
Right. So it becomes like a very ascetic thing as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been really interesting for me reading it and editing it as well, because like, you know, I'm living in the world now, and it necessarily applies to me, you know. And like, actually, I don't really get sick that much because I'm super into like health and like, I don't know, you know, like health stability and shit, and like how much can you balance your shit out so it's not these like highs and lows of like, you know, sickness and manicness or whatever. But I did get sick like a month ago. Whenever I got real run down, I had a real bad fever. And it was just around the time that I was like editing the part or a part about fever. And I don't know, like it's those two instances combined kind of like gave me different tools for dealing with that.
Since writing the book, I like relate to my illnesses in a totally different way whenever they come about.
Yeah. Well, because it's like it says, I mean, there's like a line in the book that it's like people want to treat their illness like it's something attacking them, but it's actually like the repressed parts of themselves like coming back in or whatever. And I'm like, that's what people need to hear in terms of health, you know? Like, it's not about not getting sick. It's about like the mode of not trying not to get sick, being sick. And like the more you try and like avoid sickness or negativity or queerness or sexuality or identity, like the more you're just like producing this like bigger, like sicker alter ego and shit. Like obsessed with being right, you know, and like, I don't know, with their perspective being validated. But it's like the real access to truth is in letting that be fluid and like letting yourself be flexible.
If you don't incorporate your illnesses, let's say, then and you just like express it into the world, then the world becomes like full of sickness and like viruses. I think one of the major themes of the Virusexuals is that there's not really a big difference between like emotional health and physical health.
Yeah.
They've kind of like collapsed onto each other. And so the main character experiences their physical sicknesses as like a very emotional environment.
I mean, like a lot of people do as well. I mean, like a lot of sicknesses come from like your repressed emotional shit and experiences anyway.
Right. That happens a lot in Genji Monogatari as well. Like a lot of the characters just die because they're like they did something shameful and they just refuse to eat and they just disappear and things like that, and it happens like quite frequently throughout the book.
Yeah, I mean, like there is no real difference between like internal experience and external experience, you know? Like people should die out of shame or whatever.
Right.
I mean, they're trying to anyway. Like you're trying to die.
Mm.
Or you're trying to get your own
Hashtag
negativity back by
right.
doing shameful shit or whatever. I mean,
Mm.
Freud's on that buzz. I mean, like, Freud is like a lot closer to like shamanism and like
Mm.
Chinese medicine or like cosmological shit. And there's like other kind of like I've read other case studies where like people's, I don't know, shame and guilt or repressed shit is also like manifested through the people and situations around them as well, obviously.
Right. And actually, like literally being depressed makes you more susceptible to physical illnesses as well.
Yeah.
It like shuts down your immune system and stuff.
But yeah, I don't know. It's only like bureaucracy that really sets mental health or emotional health apart from physical health as well. Well, I mean, like, I don't think they were always separate, but like things are getting like more and more stratified.
Right. And maybe that stratification makes them like both sick. It's like becoming something even different to like a classical sense of sickness, in that it's like, because there's no magnetism between the two of them, there's no like exchange, they both like just become like this state of no activity and stagnation basis.
Yeah, well, it's like the more you split things up, the less like force everything has or whatever.
Right.
The less energy everything has.
And that's the same with identity too.
Yeah.
The more you fragmentalize your identity, the more it become.
Yeah, like you look at people's Twitter and shit these days, and like it's like their bio is like a list of categories.
Right.
And it's like, I don't care. I'm just going to read your tweets. Like, I can make up my own mind about your tweets.
Right. Yeah, people are just running into their identities and saying like, I'm this and that, but it's not like you're just that, right? I think one of the problems is the way I think in that we engage with digital media, actually, because we find it difficult to like project things that are deeper than these categorical terms.
Yeah, well, and it encourages categorization and compartmentalization a lot as well, because it's like you can lay everything out on your computer screen.
Right.
Like right now, I've got a box with my face and a box with your face. You know,
it encourages you to like be like understood in terms of like data and words and codes, but what is that at the expense of?
Yeah, everything else.
Everything else, right?
The experience of the world is not necessarily going to be that different with or without the internet, but like having the convenience and like speed and like, I don't know, conceivability and understandability that the internet offers, like it's just like there's going to be a lot more tendency for people to fall into be like, yeah, that's what reality is about, like that's what life is, like that's what I mean in life. And like without it, I mean, if it's like more spacious and like more immersed and more like I mean slower even.
When I was like a lot more like popular on social media and stuff, when I was like way more active with it, I was like so much more depressed. And I wonder if like media actually just encourages you to employ depression as a tactic for like advancing yourself in the world, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I think like when I get depressed, it's like, I don't know, I've like seen a pattern where like I get in like a mode where I like really need like gratification or something, and my like cycle of like gratification to like rest or whatever is like a lot faster. And I think like people look for that from the internet because it's like somewhere that you can always get immediate gratification. And like
Right.
people go on social media and they'll like do like 14 posts and they'll be like, fuck yeah, I'm getting likes, and it like ticks the box in their brain or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I mean, it's just a drug. Like it's literally a drug in your brain, but it's also just like something in the world that you fixate on,
Right.
and you're like, that gives me that, and I
Right.
need that, so I'm gonna keep doing it. Because if
Right.
I don't, I'm dead or whatever. Like I don't exist. But I mean, like the internet is superficialization of other things in the world,
Right.
and
Well, I mean, it's
like
literally a surface.
yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's
like people are trying like working really hard to like make it less of a surface too, which is kind of weird because like we already have things that aren't a surface that we're gonna just do exactly the same thing on,
right.
but with less like fantasy maybe. But I mean, like media and mediation is already that. Internet's just like the newer, flatter version of it, and like the world is already that anyway. Like the world is already a space that has been built up for us to like play out our identities and ideas and feelings and fantasies.
Yeah. Like the world is the original internet,
Yeah,
and it's like a better internet than the internet.
yeah, it's way better. But then it like it just shuts down your actual like engagement with the world and therefore your identity or whatever. Like your
Well, it shouldn't be easy to like obtain pleasure. And the best pleasures are like hard to obtain as well.
yeah, kind of. I mean, like you can just obtain pleasure by like being there anyway. Like you can just be pleasure. I mean, you like these days or whatever. Well, no, whatever. Like if you live in like a human body, you probably have to like build it up, build up the ability or the focus to do it or whatever.
Right. So
But like,
maybe it's actually um like the instant gratification model of the internet, like porn or like uploading stuff is the hard way to obtain pleasure.
well, I think so. I mean, you get,
It's like you're just congesting your path towards pleasure, or
yeah,
like you're seeing pleasure as something that is outside of yourself, and
yeah,
you're always chasing it, right?
yeah. And like the
But
more you put it outside, you know, and
yeah,
like, the further away that you put it from yourself, the more you're gonna have to like work to get it.
right. But the real easy way to obtain pleasure is to just like
Do nothing.
to just like be pleasure, right?
Yeah. I don't know. People get really sucked into having these like objectified versions of everything. So it's like,
Mm,
you know, sex that is like a penis going into a vagina is like the model of sex that people are like fixated on or whatever. And I
mm,
know that everyone is pushing against that now because they're like, that's not the only way to have sex. But like they're going like, that's not the only sex. But then their solution to that is to go further in the same direction rather than going like back to like, whoa,
mm.
everything was already sex in the first place, you know? Like,
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about, how like queerness only just like it's just like a hyper model of like cis het normativity.
yeah, I mean, I think it's making a lot of good progresses. Like it's putting ideas and versions of things out there as well, you know. And it's
Mm,
like maybe it is actually closer to the undead thing, and like people are able to have ideas and fantasies and experiences that they maybe couldn't have if they hadn't heard about
mm,
shit or had just had the internal space or like
right.
you know, permission to do
Mm,
shit
mm,
through like the like queer lens or whatever.
mm.
But it like that doesn't automatically mean that like people's day-to-day interactions and behaviors are good.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of all for nothing if there's no like spiritual ascension that goes along with it.
Well, yeah, and that can only come through like practical, even like physical change and engagement. Whereas if it's
Right.
still going further and further out of the body, you know, like people are like disembodied. like the whole time. And like people are on the internet and their like mind is like plugged into the internet and they're like, why do I feel so fucked up? And like, I mean, like I can't generalize, but like I know a lot of people who are like taking drugs every week and on the internet every day, or even, you know, like smoke weed every day and like whatever. And then they're like, why am I so like disembodied? Or like, why is my dysmorphia so bad? And it's like, because you don't live in your body. Like you will feel totally disconnected from the world and shit.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But is writing ever the real thing? What do you think? It's something that I've been thinking about as well when I write. Like, because I feel like it can be a real thing, and it has been a real thing for me with the Bisexuals, because it has actually like affected major decisions that I've made in my life. So there's often this idea that like writing is inherently melancholy. Because it's I guess the idea behind that is that it's closer to death than it is to life or something, because when you're writing you can't do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, like I still write, but in general I would speak against it as a practice, because like I think like there's too strong a belief that like truth is in writing, and that like the ideas in writing are what we need to be intelligent or to be right or whatever, you know, like people who read a lot think that the book is the real knowledge or whatever. And it's just like the internet, like they've just like plugged their mind into like book land.
Right.
And like it does stop people from like engaging with the world in other ways, because like they're not doing it. Like they spend all their time doing the other thing.
Well, the other way to look at it though is like books as like portals to other people, and I guess other worlds as well. The thing with writing is that it differs from the internet in the sense that it's like you have to do a lot of legwork when you read compared to the internet.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit more.
It's not as much legwork as like being in the world.
Well, it's code, right? Like it's like you're like the computer and the book is the code and you just run the program and the images like pop up and shit. But I mean, it's still all laid out for you, you know, the technology is just a bit older, but it's like the same idea.
Okay.
But I still like, I do it and I really get into it. But like, I think it's important that people treat it as just something that's stimulating them, but it's them doing the knowledge. So that it's like their engagement with it, and then you keep doing the knowledge in the world. Like you're engaging with someone else. But like, you know, like it's even worse now with the internet. I mean, the internet is more or less reading and writing anyway. And like, people believe that the things that they read and post on the internet are important and meaningful. You know, like people believe that like, if I say this to this person, like I'm doing work, like I'm doing activism and I'm doing change and shit. And it's like literally just not. Like look at what is physically happening there. Not that the physical is the only thing, but like what you're literally doing is like sitting at the computer, putting your energy into the computer.
Yeah, like where does that energy go then? If you put it into the internet, what happens to that energy? I think like there's a lot of like potential energy in the internet that has been invested into it, and it's just like not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think there's like, I mean, I think it's becomes repressed in the body. And so it's still there, but it becomes this like stagnant blockage in your body or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you like get the you know, the stimulation from having expressed something, but you don't actually get the like exchange that you want to be getting or whatever.
It was, I think it was, you know, Satoshi, the guy who did Paprika. He said in that film that that there was a line in the film that was like, the internet is basically a place where you submit your repressions and traumas. It's just like a big cesspool of like your unconscious or your the parts of you that you have yet to really incorporate into yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why you upload things, because you see it as like trash or like something that you like you can like consume. So you think, okay, I'll just throw it onto the internet dumpster.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel the same about art. Like, it's a great space for you to plug into a bit to explore these ideas that aren't being explored in another way. So it's like, yeah, it's great to have spaces to do that. But like, people are too susceptible to addiction. You know, like, people can't help themselves but like stay stuck in a space because it made them feel a bit good or whatever, quite good. But it's like, we have that already. Like, we've had addiction for ages, guys. Like, it's not new. Like, we don't actually need the internet to give us the things, you know, that kind of module. Like, we've got them already. We've got books and like...
Right. Yeah, we've got like better drugs than the internet. And we've got better drugs than drugs. We've got like God.
Yeah, well, we do. Yeah, well, I know, like, that is the real, like, loss, I think, that we have. Like, if you have all these, like, placebos and technologies and tools available, then you're like, I don't need God, or whatever. I mean, like, I think that's what Nietzsche's really about when he's like, God is dead. It's like, literally, humans were like, nah, I prefer using this tool and getting this thrill to, like, God, you know, amongst many other things. But it's like, so you use the tool to kill God because you like can't handle the like infinity of the world in God's hand or in God's eye or whatever. So you like do away with it in favor of like the finitude of the tool that gives you all the like solid and like certain response that you want from the world or whatever. And here we are, we've got science now. And everything's great. Everything is certain and true.
The thing is, like, you can't just like create a system that is designed to not have any like subjectivity whatsoever, or it's designed not to have God in it, and then say, oh, God doesn't exist. It's like you've drawn a box and that box doesn't include God, and you've said, okay, there's nothing else outside of this box.
Yeah. I read this story, I think it was like a Taoist one. Like, there's like animals in a zoo, and one of the lions has like gone out and come back, and it's like, guys, there's like this whole world out there that is totally different from that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the real shit that we need to be doing. And like the other animals inside are like, nah, bro, like, I've examined every centimeter and like millimeter of this cage. There's definitely nothing like that out there.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time.